Okay, in this lecture, we are going to see how we can fetch those data to our Node.js application. So if you remember, we have installed a library which is called HTTPS. Of course, I am not going to use this library in the course, but I just wanted to show you quickly because this library is not maintained anymore because it has only first version and never got maintained. Of course, luckily, it's still working with current versions or updated versions from Node.js, but it's not updated anymore. So maybe one day it will not work. So I prefer always to use library which is called Axios. So for that, I'm going to show you example which is written in the documentation of Messari.io. So if you go to the documentation, read our documentation, and you will see live example written with Node.js to have the HTTPS library. So first of all, you require the library as we saw, and then you create a request. The host name is like that, and the path is required, and also some API key, and then you will get the data in those chunk of data or parse as a JSON. So this is how you can create it using the HTTPS. But as I told you, I am going to install a library which is called Axios. So if you go to Google and type Axios, then you will have Axios library on GitHub, and this library is very great for fetching data instead, for example, to your front end using some React Native or React or Angular, and also you can fetch data to your back end, to your Node.js application. So as you see here, like the common usage is like this. You create instance constant from Axios, you call the library, you get the default, and then you say I want to get the data from a specific link, and this link for us is this one as I showed you before. And then you do like to wait for the data until you get them. You can catch an error in case there is error, and then another then to show that it's always executed. You don't need this, we need just to have then and catch. So let's install that library and we will see how we can use it. First of all, I am going to have npm install Axios. As I explained before, we know how to install libraries now, so it has now the latest version. So we go to our application and we call the library. So we said on the top always we call our libraries. So I will have here require directly, and then I will say I want Axios library. And then as we see in the documentation, there is something called default. So we follow exactly the documentation. We say that, okay, require Axios, as you see here, and we put the default. But of course, you can perform a GET request. We need to create a GET request, so we don't need, as you see, this default. I am mentioning that to not get confused of that documentation. So for that, I am going to remove it. So we will have here no default, and we have the Axios library imported. So now we will use some default, we can say call. So I will go here at the end and I will say axios.get. We will get like some data. So we have, let's say in the example, in the API says, so let me zoom it a little bit. So now I will have this example, Axios get, I specify URL, and there is a callback, and in the callback I will have the response. So let's try that. So first of all, I need to specify URL. From where I will get the URL? Let's get it from the basic documentation. We have this URL which is default. So we will go again and paste the URL. Okay, it's big URL, but it doesn't matter for now. And then we will say like Axios, and it will have then, as you see here. So in this then we will have the response. It will be call, like we can say a callback. So the callback, as we learned with Node.js, that okay, we have then, and then I specify or define a callback. Let's move to another line here. So we say then, and then I will put here a callback, and in this callback it has a function which has parameter called response, let's say, and then I will have this response as the response of that request or of that URL. And then we will have something called catch, as we see in the documentation, and it will have error. And this error will also be a callback, and we can console.log that error, for example. So let's try that now. So I will console log as well the response in our console. Of course, it will be big because we have here the console. Let's go back to our console. The application is running, and let's try again how to do that. So sometimes when you type response, it's importing some constant automatically from Express. So try to avoid that. You can just remove it easily. So now we have in the response, as you see, I saved axios.get, and I get multiple data in the console. And in this console, there is all detail about that request. So we will see, like, it's a very big request. Let's take it and put it, for example, in our editor. So I'm going to have it here. Let's make a new JSON file. Let's say call it data.json. Of course, we are going to remove this file. So as you see, all of those data, they are provided in this API or in this request. So it has, for example, status is okay, it's success, the date, the time. You can use all of those data for your front end. But we just need the real data. So where are the real data? The real data, if you go still scroll down, you will have the data here. So we will have object called data, and it will contain the same response from the API. So if you want, you can go to the Postman and create a normal request. So I will go again here to Postman, create a new request, let's say HTTP request, and then I will place the URL which I got from the documentation of Masari. So we can put it here. It's like I am using now Axios. So I am calling like an API. So I will click on send. Okay, send request. I got the response from the API. So it will be a JSON, and this JSON contains two fields. One is status, and the second is data, as you see here. So let me make it bigger a little bit. So we have all of this data. So this data contain objects. First object is a Bitcoin and the price. Second object is Ethereum and its price. So all the detail, or most famous, we can say, data placed here. So exactly how we got in the console of our application, if you go back, we got status, okay, stamp, timestamp, and elapsed 143, and also we have the data. And those data are objects which contain Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana, etc. So we need to get those data and get what we want from it. So all of this data, we can display them in the WebSocket and push them to the WebSocket every 3 seconds. So let's organize our code a little bit, as we will see in the next lecture.